It's the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, broadcasting live from downtown Nashville. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And good morning to the John Fredericks Radio Network. We are indeed broadcasting live from our studios in downtown Nashville. You can follow me on X, Michael P. Leahy. Also listen to us all across the John Fredericks Radio Network. We are joined in studio now. I'm not going to say by 47. I'm not going to say by President-elect Trump. But I am going to say it's a guy who knows how to talk like President-elect Trump, the great Sean Farash. John, welcome.
Oh, it's good to be back. Right? It's good to be back. It's always good to be here. I love it. It's a great time.
Sean, we're going to hear from President-elect Trump.
We will.
In a few minutes.
Yeah.
He has some thoughts about the drones in
does.
New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to hear what those thoughts are.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable stuff.
Meanwhile, it's time for the Morning Rundown, brought to you every day at this time by our friends at the Glock Store, glockstore.com, the #1 provider of Glock accessories in the country, right here in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, here we go. Morning Rundown for Thursday, December 12th, 2024. Number 1, Christopher Wray resigns as the FBI director. Wah, wah. Tears everywhere. Not really. Number 2, Luigi Mangione has been arrested, charged with murder in New York, not extradited yet from Pennsylvania. NYPD says more evidence connecting him to the crime of the killing of the CEO of United Healthcare. Number 3, Carrie Lake, named yesterday head the Voice of America. Good move. Number 4, Bill Belichick has accepted a job as a college head coach at the University of North Carolina. Big news. We'll get back to why. I have a theory as to why. It's kind of a funny theory. Sean's smiling. You know what my theory is. Number 5, Donald Trump this morning. We'll hear from him shortly. But just a few minutes ago, he rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. He's Time Magazine's Man of the Year. Number 6, State Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson from here in Tennessee will be here to talk about what it was like to be at the Supreme Court when the famous transgender case was heard in oral arguments last week. Number 7, retired California attorney Mark Pulliam joins us in the second hour about that Los Angeles court case. A detransitioning woman is suing the doctor for negligence. I think that's going to turn out to be quite interesting. Number 8, the great Neil McCabe, also a friend of Sean Farash, joins us. And then number 9, what's going on with those drones in New Jersey? We're going to hear from 47 on that in a moment. But first, all of this is brought to you. I'm doing my Rush Limbaugh. My never nicotine-stained hands. The Morning Rundown is brought to you by our friends at the Glock Store. You know, Lenny McGill, the CEO, told me that the Black Friday deal days were a huge success, including an uptick in sales from cities that get the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. We're talking Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, Nashville, Memphis. So thank you. Now, if you missed out a few of the details, don't worry. They'll be launching their Christmas sales soon enough with even more great deals on Glock's performance parts, all the great accessories they stock. And they only stock the best because they personally test each one. If Lenny McGill doesn't like it, it doesn't get on, period. And if he really likes the product, he features it on his YouTube channel. You got to go to the YouTube channel. Over 1,000 videos, 1 million subscribers. YouTube.com/@ Glock Store. And don't forget, go to glockstore.com and sign up for their weekly sales letter. You'll even get a link to the latest Lenny McGill video every Wednesday afternoon. I'm proud that Lenny McGill is a friend and a sponsor. Visit glockstore.com today. You'll be glad you did, and so will I. Well, Sean, the door is opening. 47, the president-elect, Donald Trump, just after I don't know how he made it here so quickly.
He's got the best plane, right? Fast.
It's the best.
It's the fastest plane.
He rang the bell just moments ago at the opening of the New York Stock Exchange. Would you mind if I asked him a question?
Oh, of course. That's what he's here for.
Okay. Well, I got to ask the president a question. We could take away some of Sean's time.
Right.
And
I'd happily cede my time to 47-elect.
Okay. Yeah. President-elect Trump, you've got this Bedminster golf course in New Jersey.
It's a beautiful course, by the way.
It
Nobody's ever seen a better golf course. Nobody's ever seen one.
But the neighbors are kind of complaining, not about you.
That's a first, right?
But up in the sky, there are these huge drones. And some people say they're like, the size of an SUV. Then you hear Congressman Van Drew from New Jersey saying, well, higher sources told him that the drones are up there because they're coming off a mothership.
Which is, by the way, I just have to say something, it's offensive, the term mothership. It should be birthing person vessel. We have to be careful, right? Because the fake news is not going to like that. But we could solve that problem.
How could we solve that problem?
Well, there's a guy in New Jersey. You may have heard of him. Everybody's seen him. He's hard to miss. His name is Chris Christie, right? He's hard to miss, right? We call him hard to miss. And, I say we could use him because he's not very useful. And last week, you know what happened? I heard he was on a cruise in California. He fell off a cruise ship and there was a tsunami warning. You heard about that too, right? But we have Chris Christie in New Jersey. I said you could unleash him or deploy. You could deploy Chris Christie and he could catch the drones right in his orbit. You won't have to worry about it. Or you could have him eat the drones, right? Because he's a hungry guy. We call him Hungry Chris Christie, right? They named a board game after him. You may have heard of it too. It's called Hungry Hippo, right? And I heard that The View, I call it the zoo, they're looking to add a new cow to the screen. So Chris Christie may join it. But we did Space Force. We have tremendous capabilities with our military. And you could deploy Chris Christie. He could catch the drones in his orbit and nobody would ever have a problem, right? We've seen what happens when he's on stage. I was there with him one time. They threw an orange, they threw a tomato at him because they don't like him. And it went around and around. It goes everywhere with him. It's like Mary's little lamb. Chris Christie, he's got a moon now. It's incredible. So you could have him deployed in New Jersey, and he could catch the drones in his orbit, and nobody will have a problem with it. And if they want them destroyed, he could, of course, do that too. He could eat them, and that would be the end of the drones.
This would solve the problem because...
And that's what we do best, right? We solve problems better than anybody's ever solved them before, right? We're going to build a beautiful wall. We have beautiful people that are going to help us with the border and everything, and we could solve the drone problem very quickly.
So I think it could solve that problem because, people are saying, you got to shoot him down. Now, that was my initial reaction, Mr. President-elect. Shoot him down. But the problem is, it's not like the desert of Iraq. You shoot down a drone the size of an SUV, where's it going to land?
It could hurt somebody, right?
Yeah.
And we had this problem, right? When I was we talked to the guy in Afghanistan. His name is Abdul. You know Abdul. And we said, Abdul, stop killing our people. And Abdul said, sir, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, because if you keep killing our people, we're going to destroy your house. He said, sir, you're not going to be able to do that. My house is drone proof. I said, yes, but it's not Lizzo proof. That was before Lizzo went on a diet. Now we're threatening to drop. You saw him. He's called the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. That's a big boy too, right? We're going to drop him on Abdul's house. He said, sir, we will not keep killing your people. We can't handle J.B. Pritzker on the house. So, but the drones, we have to take care of them. That's why we're going to go with the Chris Christie solution. No drones have to crash, and everybody's going to be okay.
Well, you made it down here so quickly after you just rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. What was that like, being the man of the year, according to Time Magazine, yet again?
Well, we're always the man of the year. When you look at it, right, everybody keeps talking about me. Time Magazine, they act like they didn't post fake news all over the place for the last 4 years, or really the last 8 years, for a long time. But we are the man of the year. We're always the man of the year. And more importantly, we're the man of the people. We love the people, beautiful people. And we're very honored to be on the cover.
Well, very good. We'll have more with President-elect Trump, also known as Sean Farage, when we come back. And we'll be joined by Sean's friend and my friend, the great Neil W. McCabe.
Love him.
He doesn't even know you're here, Mr. President-elect.
Oh, it's going to be great.
All right, back after this.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. In studio, the great Sean Frosh. Some of you might know him as President-elect Trump. On our newsmaker line right now, the greatest political reporter in the country, Neil W. McCabe. Welcome, Neil.
Michael, so good to be with you. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Neil. How are you? You know, long time no talk, right? You know,
We're all very excited.
So, Neil,
Yeah.
I saw yesterday a couple things. In Canada, Justin Trudeau's kind of whiny. Oh, those bad people in America. We thought they were going to progress and get a woman elected as their head, but they went back. And they're so mean to us. And then the premier of Ontario said, "Oh, those nasty Americans. If they want a trade war, we'll cut off power to Michigan." And what are your thoughts on that, Neil W. McCabe?
Listen, if they don't behave themselves, they might be the ones we make ambassador to Greece.
Okay, now that is a great line. So here's the thing. We have the president-elect here in studio. He flew up very quickly right after he rang the bell of the New York Stock Exchange. Mr. President-elect, so your son is dating Kimberly Guilfoyle. Then they break up. And then the next thing we know, you're naming her ambassador to Greece. Was this part of a plan here, Mr. President?
well, I happen to get along very well with Greece, right? I knew Odysseus very well. I knew Achilles very well. And I fought with George Santos in the Trojan War, right? He did very well in the Trojan War. But, and I told Odysseus, I said, Odysseus, we have to build a horse. We have to build a beautiful horse, and we're going to use it to get inside the gates. But we got along very well with Greece, and we love Greece. Greece is tremendous. We say opa, right? We throw dishes at the wall sometimes when we're upset. We do it when we're happy also. And we got along well, and they say we love Kim Guilfoyle. So she's going to Greece, and, like Neil said, we could make the premier of Ontario the next ambassador to Greece. You know, Queen Justine. I call him Queen Justine Trudeau, right? He's a lady. He's unhappy. He's not happy about it. And Melania said to me the other day, she said, "Honey, it's pretty sad. You were elected president. Now you're hanging out with all these ladies. Justin Trudeau, Zelensky, Macron. You're hanging out with all these women. What are we going to do?" I said, "No, it's okay." She's fine. I said, "Honey, they're not into me. They're into each other. These people they love each other, right?" But you look at Queen Justine Trudeau. He's a silly person. He sits when he pees, and like Lindsey Graham. And you look at him, and he's saying, "Oh, I'll tell you what he's unhappy about. He's unhappy that America is still the only continent, the only country in North America without a female head of state. That much I can tell you."
Yeah, Neil W. McCabe, are you feeling sorry for Justine Trudeau?
No, I don't feel sorry for anybody who shoots the pook and the ghoul, if you know what I mean.
Neil, another person I suppose we could feel sorry for, at least.
Yeah.
In the way he resigned yesterday. Did you see Christopher Wray?
Wow, that's rough. Oh, poor Chrissy. He's just having a really tough time. It's I think that this chapter of the FBI, which really began with Mueller when they got involved, because what happened is they got involved with counterintelligence and counterterrorism in a way that was separate from criminal. And because it was counterintelligence, then they weren't restricted by the Constitution, because in military intelligence, which is kind of what they were doing domestically, you just need to find out what the threat is. You're not worried about somebody's rights because you're dealing with terrorists or spies.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that sort of license was hijacked to go after people domestically anyway. And what they would do is they would use all their counterterrorism privileges to hunt down people, and then they would just sort of make up a criminal case based on what they learned illegally. And of course, they're monitored. They were bugging. The whole Trump campaign was being bugged. The whole Trump presidency was being bugged. You had Andrew McCabe joking with the deputy attorney general about wearing a wire so they can maybe do a 25th Amendment against Trump. I mean, these guys are absolutely out of control. The FBI has to be stripped to the studs. I have no problem with the FBI field offices, which are under the direct supervision of a presidentially appointed U.S. attorney. But what goes on at FBI headquarters, especially the counter intel and national security stuff, is bonkers. And I just keep coming back. I remember the text that I got when somebody put MAL just got raided. And I didn't even know what MAL meant, right? And it was like Mar-a-Lago just got raided.
August of 22, that was.
August
right?
8th, yeah.
And it's like, think about what you were thinking and what you were going through when you realized that an FBI SWAT team was sent in to Mar-a-Lago, which meant if they can go after Trump in his house, and they can go through Melania's panty drawers, and they can go through all of Barron's stuff, it's like none of us are safe.
So, Neil,
and
we
it's
have
over now.
We have the president-elect here, and Mr. President-elect, when you heard Christopher Wray whining about in his resignation, the same guy that basically ordered the FBI to raid your house in Mar-a-Lago, what were your thoughts on that, Mr. President-elect?
Well, first of all, I want to say something because you have Neil. He's a great guy. But he talked about Andrew McCabe, and I just want to make sure everybody understands. Not related, right? They're not related.
Not related.
And if they were related, Neil would have disowned him immediately, first of all.
Listen, the first McCabe got around. I have no excuses for that.
But you look at when you look at the raid, and they went through Melania's panty drawer, but even worse than that, they went through, and you know he likes it a lot, Barron. They went through his suitcase. You know, he says he likes his suitcase, and they went through it. You can't go near his suitcase. He took it to school, but it's a disgrace, quite frankly. It really is a disgrace. And they came into the house. They did terrible things. They threw things around. And the one thing I heard they loved my gold toilet seats in Mar-a-Lago. But they wanted to take that. I said, there's not a chance in hell you're going to take that. So they tried to take it. They wouldn't let them take it.
Tell us about Kash Patel. You've picked Kash Patel.
Well, we love Kash. He's a wonderful person. And you say, how are you paying, cash or card? We say cash only. He's a great guy. And he's going to do fantastic work at the FBI. A lot better than Mueller, a lot better than McCabe. Not Neil, of course, but Andy. And a lot better than Christopher Wray, who was appointed and told to appoint by Chris Christie, which was a stupid thing to do when you look at it. The only advice I would take from Chris Christie is what I should have for dinner tonight. That's the only advice.
Or a donut order.
Neil W. McCabe. So now the path is clear for Trump's nominee, Kash Patel. He's been making rounds in the United States Senate. I'm not seeing any opposition to him. What's the likelihood Kash Patel will be confirmed?
I think Kash Patel is on the glide path. I think Robert Kennedy Jr. is on the glide path. I think that Hegseth, they had to do a kind of a funny thing, which you're familiar with, Mike, is they had to go back home and tell the folks back home what their representatives in Washington were up to. And I remember the takedown that you did on Bob Corker, Mike. And I remember people in Washington on Capitol Hill had no idea why Corker was even in trouble and why his career was over. But it's because the people back home were ticked off. And that's what's happening in Iowa with Joni Ernst and Todd Young in Indiana. They're feeling the heat back home. People want Hegseth. They want him bad.
Neil, did you see this as a guy who knows a lot about military information and communications? So ProPublica, which is a left-wing operation, goes to West Point because Pete Hegseth had said, well, I'd been accepted at West Point, but I chose to go to Princeton. And they go to the comms person at West Point. Do you have any record of Pete Hegseth being accepted at West Point? No, we don't. No, we don't. They were going to do a story on it, right? Hegseth got wind of it. He kept the record from like 1996 or something around then when he was accepted, and he published that letter of acceptance, and they had to basically not run the story. They're claiming at ProPublica, well, this is how journalism works. No, this was a hit job. And then you've got the comms person at West Point who was kind of aiding and abetting it. What are your thoughts on that, Neil W. McCabe?
First, when I was at Fort Bragg Public Affairs, I worked firsthand with ProPublica which put out a bogus story that formaldehyde in the dry walls at Fort Bragg Housing was responsible for the death of 12 infants. It was completely bogus. We had to do lab tests to finally shut it down. But this is like 15 years ago. ProPublica, they are monsters. Second thing, I think this thing went down where West Point Public Affairs called ProPublica and said, hey, this guy, he was never accepted to West Point. It's completely bogus. I think that's how it went down, and that's why would ProPublica reach out to West Point like that? It just seems like it came from the Army Public Affairs Office at West Point, just like when they went after Doug Mastriano at Carlisle Barracks. They had a costume party or something when he was at War College. He dressed up as a Confederate officer. It was the War College at Carlisle Barracks.
Yeah, War College.
Gave Reuters those photos.
So Neil, here's the thing about
time,
this:
Mike.
If Pete Hegseth had not kept a 26-year-old copy of that acceptance letter, they would have gotten him. But he's a very detailed guy.
1,000%. Because it's like in there, and reporters are the most maybe not the most loathsome. Maybe poets are the most loathsome people.
And on that note, final word here. We got about 10 seconds from the president-elect wants to say so long to you, Mr.
Well, so long, Neil, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday, I believe, right? We always see you
next Tuesday, sir.
We love you.
All right. Neil W. McCabe,
good, guys.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with more. Jack Johnson, State Senate Majority Leader, joined us. I'm Michael Patrick Leahy. He's Sean Farash, sometimes known as 47. Back after this.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
Welcome back. Sean Frosh is in studio. On our newsmaker line right now, our very good friend, Tennessee State Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson. Welcome, Senator Johnson.
Good morning, Michael. Good to be back with you.
Well, Jack, you were at the Supreme Court 1 week ago yesterday for the landmark oral argument in the case of United States v. Skrmetti. What was it like being there?
Well, it was incredible, Michael. It was such an incredible honor to be there. Anytime I think you get to attend an oral argument before the United States Supreme Court will be a special occasion. Certainly, the cases that the U.S. Supreme Court takes up, they're typically very big, important cases. So I think being there anytime would be a special occasion. But to be there, knowing and witnessing them discussing a bill that was sponsored, that originated right here in Tennessee, that will be a test case for the entire country on such a critically important issue, which, of course, is the right of states to protect kids from the barbaric practice of transgender surgeries and the use of harmful prescription medications, made it even more special. So it was, I'm very grateful to our incredible Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti, who invited William Lamberth, who is the House sponsor of that legislation, and myself to attend those hearings.
Now, Matthew Rice was our Solicitor General. I thought he was spectacular. What were your thoughts on his response to the question?
I did as well. I walked in with Matt. He is a great guy. He is a brilliant lawyer, brilliant attorney, as are so many of the people on General Skrmetti's staff. He's got such an amazing team. But walked in with him, and I asked him, I said, "Are you nervous?" And he said, "A little bit," but he was so incredibly prepared. And like you, I thought he just did a masterful job. For those who listened or witnessed, they started with the plaintiffs, and that's the Department of Justice under President Joe Biden, and the U.S. Solicitor General, and they made their opening statements, and then there was an attorney from the ACLU who did, and then the justices asked them a variety of questions. Then they went to our Solicitor General for Tennessee, Matt Rice, who made his statement, and then they began the questioning. And, of course, the three liberal justices, Kagan, Jackson, and Sotomayor, came out very aggressively against Jackson, asking questions and fairly tough questions about our legislation, and I thought he handled it beautifully.
I thought he did, too. I thought they were actually over-the-top aggressive. But let's set the stage for the room, because we talked to Attorney General Skrmetti. He was at that front table to the left of Matthew Rice, who was made the argument. And he said they were very close. They're like about 8 feet away from the Supreme Court justices. Where were you physically within that room?
Yeah, so the chamber itself is fairly small. Someone told me that at full capacity it can hold around 200 spectators, if you will, or people to watch the proceedings. The justice is set up on a dais. You've seen renderings of that. They don't allow TV cameras in there, but you've seen probably pictures or renderings of that. Then immediately in front of that are, of course, the attorneys and their teams that are arguing the case. And then directly behind that, still within the bar, as they say, the railing that goes around, there were a bunch of chairs set up, and attorneys who are being sworn into the United States Supreme Court get to occupy those seats. And then behind the bar is what you would consider to be the traditional gallery, and where they had kind of like church pews lined up for seating. And Leader Lamberth and I were on the second row of what would be considered the traditional gallery. In the front row right in front of us were other members of General Skrmetti's staff. Governor Bill Lee was there. He was at the end of that front row. And then Leader Lamberth and I were in the second row there.
So I thought it was interesting because it was like about 2.5 hours. And the first, the Solicitor General from the Biden Department of Justice got about 45 minutes. And then this transgender attorney for ACLU, Chase Strangio, got about another 45 minutes. And it wasn't really until about the hour 40-minute mark that they started addressing questions to Matthew Rice, the Solicitor General for Tennessee. And I thought was interesting. He gave an opening statement. Clarence Thomas, for whom he had clerked, asked the first question. And as he was answering that first question very aggressively. I think it was Justice Sotomayor who made the first question, but a very aggressive set of questions that, frankly, seemed to me to be way off point. When Sotomayor jumped in, what was your sense? What was your feeling in the room?
Well, hostility, I guess, is, as you said, the first portion, if you will, those two segments were with the U.S. Solicitor General, and then the gentleman from the individual, I should say, from
right.
the ACLU. They made their statements and then the questions. And I think it's up to the justices. I don't think there's necessarily any – I think the attorneys are limited in the amount of time they have to make their statement. But when it comes to the question period and the discussion between the justices and the attorney, there's really no limit on that. It's however long the justices want to go. But when it got to Tennessee Solicitor General Matt Rice, as you said, when Justice Sotomayor jumped in, I was taken aback, maybe a little bit strong, but I was somewhat surprised at just the hostile nature with which their questioning was. And frankly, the arguments they were trying to make and imply, it didn't resonate with me. I thought that some of the arguments they were making were a little off base. But I'm not a member of the court. We're cautiously optimistic we'll get a good decision sometime next year.
So the first question that Sotomayor asks is, well, Counselor, you're saying that there are life-altering, unchangeable, irreversible effects of taking puberty blockers or hormone therapy for young minors who are, think they want to change genders. She then asserted, well, everything has some effect, like aspirin has a side effect. Did you hear that? And what did you think when she said that?
Well, I did hear it. And as I said previously, I was confused. I was somewhat befuddled by the reasoning that they were trying to lay out. Because I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not an attorney, but as you know, Michael, you and I have discussed this issue on numerous times about the need to protect kids from these very, very harmful drugs. And I know you know this, but to be sure that your audience, they did not even sue us over the surgeries. Our bill did two things. It banned surgical treatments for transgender or gender dysphoria for minors. That's removing breasts, modifying body parts. They didn't even challenge that. So that's been in effect. What they challenge us on is the use of these drugs, puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and so forth. And having studied this issue for almost 2 years now with other members of the General Assembly, hearing lots of testimony from medical doctors, healthcare providers, and others, and parents, by the way, and those who have actually gone through these treatments, I am convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the use of these drugs that prescribing testosterone to a 13-year-old girl so that she can develop male characteristics is irreversibly harmful to her body. And similarly, prescribing estrogen to a 13-year-old boy so that he develops female characteristics, or delaying the onset of puberty for years. And there were some medical providers who tried to make the case that, there are no long-term side effects to doing this. That just makes no sense. It defies common sense. And so to your question, for Justice Sotomayor to equate using these drugs that have these kinds of effects on a young child's body to being the same level of risk as taking an aspirin, that defies common sense to me. Yet it seemed to be the case that Justice Sotomayor was trying to make.
Speaking of defying common sense, so then Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson says, well, isn't this exactly like the 1960s law in Virginia that prohibited adults from marrying someone of another race? I didn't see I don't think anybody saw that as remotely plausible as a connection. Again, you heard that. What did you think?
Likewise, I did not get the correlation. And again, I thought Matt Rice did a job, despite the somewhat aggressive nature in which Justice Jackson was trying to make that argument, and the way she delivered her line of questioning to Solicitor General Matt Rice. I thought he did a very good job, although you could almost sense that he was getting a bit frustrated because he answered the question. I think he dealt with the law regarding what she was trying to say, and yet she just kept coming back asking the same question over and over again. And the other thing, Michael, is in the wake of these oral arguments, there were many other judicial scholars and constitutional scholars who were expressing the same level of confusion about the argument they were trying to make. So I think we all felt a bit affirmed by that.
Yeah, so we can't predict how this will turn out. My guess is it'll be either a 6-3 or 5-4 victory for Tennessee. We're likely to see that in June or July. Last question for you on this. So you're sitting next to an attorney, William Lamberth, the House Majority Leader, a graduate of William & Mary. He's been practicing law for several decades here in Tennessee. Did he have any different perspective on it since he's a practicing attorney?
Well, as you know, Leader Lamberth's a great friend, House Majority Leader, and he is an outstanding attorney, and he's incredibly bright, and not only as an attorney but as a legislator. And so obviously they are very strict in the Supreme Court chamber about being quiet. And so we were certainly respectful of that and tried to honor that. But he did have some interesting observations along the same lines as you and I have been discussing right now. But and I will add, too, on a personal note, my wife, who is a circuit court judge here in Tennessee, she was also in the chamber. My wife, Deanna Johnson, who is a circuit court judge, and she had read the opinion. She's obviously quite familiar with the issue that we've been dealing with this for the last 2 years. So I had two very skilled attorneys there, one of whom I'm married to, and the other that I served with in the General Assembly that had some interesting perspectives on the arguments.
Yeah, the other thing, too, that I thought was interesting, I thought the state of Tennessee, in the arguments and in the subsequent press, has represented itself very well. Your thoughts on that in the country?
Well, that's part of what makes this so special, because the law that we crafted was unique. The other states had tried to address this, and in fact, we had a similar bill that had been introduced in the General Assembly on this issue before we became quite as aware of how frequently this was taking place in Tennessee. We started from ground zero, working with our Attorney General, working with our legal team, in crafting this bill. Leader Lamberth and I did. And for it to get to this point, not only is it's the first law banning these procedures in the country that has withstood judicial scrutiny. And now other states are using our law and the way it was crafted as model legislation. We're up to, I believe, 26 states now who have passed some variation of this. That makes me proud. I love it when Tennessee leads the nation. We do it in a myriad of ways. This is just another example of where Tennessee is leading the nation, and hopefully will be affirmed by the United States Supreme Court as we were before the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, and other states can learn from our legislation and use it to protect kids in their own states as well.
State Senate Majority Leader here in Tennessee, Jack Johnson, thanks so much for joining us today, and thank you for your leadership.
Thanks, Michael. Always great to be with you.
All right, Sean Farish, how about that?
Oh, it's great. We were there. My wife and I was there the day he introduced that bill in the state Senate.
Hey, when we come back, you saw Tom Homan here in Tennessee last night.
That's right.
Oh, boy. Back after this.
Hey there, this is Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store. As a proud sponsor of this show, you may have heard Michael Patrick Leahy mention us a few times over the past 4 years. But today, it's me on the radio telling you how pleased we are to be associated with Michael Patrick Leahy and his dedication to the highest levels of professional journalism. Michael Patrick Leahy has been threatened with jail time in bringing the true facts about that Nashville Covenant shooting to his listening audience. Michael Patrick Leahy, you keep doing what you're doing, and we here at the Glock Store will keep sponsoring your show for the good of Nashville and the entire country. And I'm personally inviting all of your listeners to come visit and shoot at the Glock Store. It's where Michael Patrick Leahy learned to shoot a gun for the first time and where he bought his own personal Glock 19. I'm Lenny McGill, founder and CEO of the Glock Store here in Nashville, just minutes from the airports, worth the drive from anywhere, and a proud sponsor of Michael Patrick Leahy and the Tennessee Star Report.
Welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show. Now, here's Michael Patrick Leahy.
And welcome back to the Michael Patrick Leahy Show, in studio with the great Sean Farash, sometimes confused with...
Sometimes. It does happen.
With President-elect Trump.
Not because of our appearance, by the way, but because of the way we sound, right? Sometimes nobody can tell the difference. We have to be very careful with it, right? We can't speak Russian. They'll say, he's with Putin, right? He's tootin' with Putin. We can't do that.
So, Sean, last night, President-elect Trump has selected Tom Homan to be the border czar.
Yeah.
And he was here in the Nashville area at an event. You were there.
Yes.
You met with him.
Well, I didn't get a chance to speak with Tom Homan, but I did get a chance to perform in front of the room before he came out. Oh my, it was so much fun. Matter of fact, the Chris Christie drone joke happened for the first time last night.
It debuted last night.
and it got a very good reception and response, which is why we ran with it today. You know, we do these things. Well, we had Neil McCabe on, and when we do these X Spaces on X on every Tuesday night, Trump Tuesday. And we do these like kind of faux press conferences. Yeah. That's where a lot of the material comes from. Because they ask me questions, I don't know what they're going to ask, right? I'm not like Kamala where she gets the questions in advance, right? We answer boom, 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 and it's and that's where a lot of these the material comes from. It's always fun. But yeah, last night was a great time.
So the group was what's called the Reagan Society.
Yes.
Who runs it? Georgia.
Gloria Giorno.
Yeah. Gloria Giorno runs it. And
Ramont Hamer, he was a part of putting that event together last night as well.
And a couple hundred people showed up.
Yeah, full room.
So you were the opening act?
Yeah, well, I was in the middle, right? So we had 2A Daddy, which is a great Second Amendment advocacy group and a great group out here. He was up, and then I came up, and then Senator Jack Johnson gave an update. We just spoke to. Yeah, so he gave an update on the Supreme Court case, which, I mean, we're rooting for Tennessee hard.
Tennessee's going to win it.
When I heard Sotomayor with her, it's like taking an aspirin that has side effects. And I said, well, I take aspirin a lot because I get migraines, mainly because of the left and CNN. But I've never taken too much Excedrin and then had the rest of my life ruined, right? Luckily. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm hoping so too. Okay, so Tom Homan, the border czar. I like Tom. He's been a guest on the show many times. I like we were both from upstate New York. He grew up in Watertown, New York. Carthage, actually, I think was a little town.
Yeah.
We used to, as a kid, when I lived in Plattsburgh, we'd go to Christmas. Our great grandparents actually lived in near Oswego, and we'd drive all across Potsdam and then these little towns. Carthage was one of them, and it's kind of bleak up there.
Yeah,
it's kind of bleak. And cold.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who lives up in the Oneonta area. It is cold, but Tom Homan last night, he kept using the phrase pissed off. He kept saying he's really pissed off. Oh, you can't? You can't say that word on the air?
Well, yeah, you that's okay.
Not supposed to. Okay, ticked off, but he used a different word. Now that I said it about 40 times. But he kept using that phraseology, and and it was refreshing for me to hear, right? Because I want my border czar to be ticked off, right? because of what's happening on the border. And Tom gave a number of reasons. He gave a number of stories and accounts and experiences as to why this is such an issue. Talking about how he, there was a 5-year-old child in the same pair of underwear that his own son has that baked to death in the back of a tractor trailer. Yes, it was too hot. He overheated. He passed away. Human trafficking, drugs, all sorts of things that are coming through the southern border that has been intentionally allowed to come across the southern border into our country, and it needs to be fixed. And that's what incoming borders are. Tom Homan seems to be locked in on to fix, and it was nice to hear that. We've seen him talk about this in mainstream media. We saw what he said to 60 Minutes. Is there a way to deport these folks without separating families? He said, send the whole family home together. Last night,
let me just. That makes sense, because if you have a minor child,
right,
who perhaps was born here, but the parents were illegal, send the whole family back.
I think so.
And if the child wants to come back when they're an adult, have them go through the process, let them come back.
Sure. And you have that aspect of it. You have Donald Trump talking about how potentially birthright citizenship may end if you are a child of an illegal immigrant. And I don't disagree, because the folks who gave birth to you shouldn't have been here in the first place.
So the law in the 14th Amendment, it says if you're a natural born citizen, you're a citizen. If you are born here and you are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
Right.
And that is the part that will be litigated. And
right.
I think Trump will win. If you're here illegally, you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. You're subject to the jurisdiction of your home country. Now, Tom had something else to add last night, I think, didn't he? Did he make some news, some things he was talking about? Like the mayor of Chicago has said, we're not going to comply. He's had some messages for those guys.
Yes, he sent messages to folks in Chicago and Denver and San Diego. If you don't comply, you will go to jail.
And guess what? I believe Tom Homan.
He said it.
Put him in jail.
He said, his phrase was game on.
Game
you
on.
Want to play, game on. Yeah. So I'm with it.
Well, Sean Farish, sometimes known as President-elect Trump.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
A fun, fast-moving hour.
Very fun.
All right. We'll be back with more after this. We'll hear from State Senator Brent Jackson and also Mark Pulliam, an attorney with experience in California, about the transgender negligence case being filed by a detransitioner against the doctor that persuaded her to get her breasts removed. Back after this.